market is so hot and prices climbing so fast that buyers are doing just about anything to get their offer accepted. One buyer promised to name his kid after the seller if the seller accepted his offer. One buyer paid $1 million over the asking price to win and beat out the other buyers. If you really want to win the house, you might just have to buy it sight unseen. Oh, you want to see that house that you're paying way over list price before you buy it? That's so 2020. And if buying the house sight unseen and paying way over list price isn't enough, you might even have to buy the home seller of the house a fabulous Maldives vacation for you to get your offer accepted in the first place. You know, because he's so stressed out counting his Benjamins. Whatever. Now, all of this crazy market buying is because housing prices are spiking at record high levels. There's lowered supply, not enough choice, and with all of that being said, the headlines are mounting that is the market cooling off? Is a crash coming? Does the fall sound the alarm bells of a housing price correction? The fact is that home prices are climbing on a monthly basis at a pace never seen in the record of the housing boom, even higher, much higher month over month than the last housing boom. So can the market correct? The answer is yes. Can the market crash? The answer is yes. But it all depends on what's going on in your own market. Yes, there's reason to be concerned. And in all reality, there will be market crashes around the country. And many professionals report that those market corrections might be just around the corner. But that's not going to be the case for every single market. I'm going to tell you right now what's going on in the market, how you can know if your city is about to be in the danger zone, and if you're in the market to buy a home right now, what you need to know, and if it does crash, what you need to do about it.
Nice.
So the culmination of all this news starts with the forbearance programs starting to come to an end. So early in 2020, when COVID crisis started to put the pressure on homeowners, the banks stepped in, the government stepped in through the CARES Act and other channels to create ways for homeowners to get forbearance. Forbearance is the act of calling your mortgage company, proving hardship, and then getting your housing payments paused so that you can get back on your feet financially. From April to October, it's speculated that there are 880,000 of those people that were in a forbearance program where it came to an end. There's also articles out now that are saying as much as 1.5 million people who were in a forbearance pause are seriously delinquent on their mortgage. Now, this fall, we're facing another 1 million plus properties coming through the forbearance programs and ending where those people are now going to be forced to try and pay back their mortgages that they couldn't afford when they asked for the forbearance to be kicked in to save them. The argument is that hundreds of thousands of homes could flood the market and then create an oversupply of homes and then sink housing prices. But let's take a look at that. According to Zillow, only 25% of the people that were in forbearance actually list their home at all when they come out of forbearance. So let's say that the proposed number of the 1.7 million people who are in forbearance now, let's take 25% of those people. If they all listed their homes, that would literally still be less than a 1 month supply in national housing. That's a very small amount. Let's say that all 2 million of those people listed their homes. It wouldn't be very much inventory. It might be a couple of months of inventory at best. But the reality is the amount of these folks in trouble that will actually need to sell is very small. Additionally, they have plenty of equity. So anybody that is in trouble is not likely going to lose their home to foreclosure. And let's keep everything in reality. Right now, we have a record low national mortgage delinquency level. It means it's at record low levels of people that are in struggle trying to pay back their mortgage on time. In hindsight, there were over 9 million people who lost their homes in the market crisis in 2007. They're vastly different numbers. So the reality of forbearance causing a crisis on its own, very unlikely. But let's get to the meat of the issue from where your housing market may really experience trouble. And that's from the supply of available homes. You see, if the supply of available homes is affected, there becomes way more options for home buyers than they have strength in the market, and that was what drives prices down. So far, supply has been so constrained because a lack of building supply over the past 10 years. Builders just didn't build enough homes for the mounting population and the demand that we have now. And the supply chain catching on will be impacted on a lot of local factors. Last month, home sales of new construction dropped suddenly for the first time since COVID hit. Now, this was majorly unexpected, and this sent shockwaves through the market. There were a whole lot of headlines pushed out about how home sales are dropping, this is a bad thing, the end is near. But in reality, that's not the whole story. You see, there's a very important thing you need to know about home sales. You actually have to have homes to sell in order for that to take place. Builders at the same time also have the lowest supply of available homes to sell than any time since COVID. So that's a factor. The other major issue that every home buyer for new construction is running into is that home building supply costs are incrementally inflating. Lumber went up 56%. It's on its way back down, but there's a host of other commodities to build a house like copper, crude, other factors that have gotten really expensive. Not to mention there's a whole host of supply constraints. There's so many builders trying to get ahead of the demand for buying these homes, and they're running out of all kinds of things, and homes might get halfway built and then they're waiting on windows and then they can't finish the rest of the house. We're seeing this across the country. So understand, new home sales is not just driven on buyers backing away as much as it is getting ahead of demand. The head at D.R. Horton recently said, we're holding off on any expansion right now because we just fundamentally, structurally are not ready for growth. We have to take a step back, get all of our business in order just to expand with the pace that the market wants to buy homes from us. But that's not the total factor. You can't blame it all on just ability to construct. I believe that prices have risen so sharply in the face of all of these climbing costs to build houses that it's also created most likely some sticker shock with buyers. Now we're going to talk about interest rates in a moment, but make no mistake, even with historic low rates, there is some signs that buyers are just feeling uneasy about how much it costs to buy and build a house right now. For instance, in May, the year-over-year price growth for a home sold in May, new construction, the price was up 18%. In June, just a month later, it had only grown by 6%, which shows a marginal shift in where pricing is going in the new construction world. Builders say those prices have to keep going up because the cost to build a house is also climbing. One other important statistic is that the number of homes that builders have for sale that aren't built yet is at the highest level since the pandemic began. That's a sign that there's a whole bunch of future opportunity that buyers are just not jumping on just yet. Hey, you like our content? Please do me a huge favor and obliterate that like button. No, that's stupid. Hey, smash the subscribe button for me. But where are those buyers going in the immediate? They're going to the resale market. And I would tell you that the resale market versus new construction is a tale of two completely different worlds. Both of these two marketplaces are moving tremendously different. In Central Florida, for instance, how fast a home sells, day on market times, still going to record lows. How much a seller gets versus their asking price, still at record highs. Units sold, average price in different zip codes, all are hitting new highs month after month. A home hits the market in our area and it sees anywhere from 40 to 90 showings in as little as 3 days with multiple offers. We still run approximately 3 weeks of available inventory in our marketplace, and many marketplaces around the country still are red hot in terms of very low inventory levels. That's not the same everywhere. Boise, for instance, some California markets, for instance, some other Midwest markets are seeing a cooling, whereas they went really red hot and they're already bouncing back, where available resale supplies is now much, much higher than a year ago. That is a sure sign that something is changing in those marketplaces, and every market is different. So one thing to consider when knowing whether or not your market is on great footing, and if you're in the middle trying to buy and you're wondering if there's a possible correction on the way, look at the local demographics. What is happening there? I'll give you some for instance. One of Florida State Departments predicted that there will be between 800 and 900 people a day moving into Central Florida between now and 2025. At the same time, across many indexes that measure how many people move to the state, we are number 1, 2, or 3 in terms of new inbound population coming to our state. When you factor that against the past, having a shortfall of available inventory being built over the past decade, you realize there's a whole lot of people coming here from other places that now need a place to sit. And when there's no places to sit, prices and rents are climbing rapidly. And when you have that kind of future growth, the likelihood of us price correcting is only dependent on one thing. So that's one thing you got to consider. Many of the other marketplaces around the country that are really popular for Florida, that means folks from Chicago, folks from New York, some from California that really look at Florida as a great place to land. Those folks are coming from marketplaces that are much higher in price, and they see our high growth of price, our current levels, as being somewhat cheap from where they came from. We kind of call that marketplace arbitrage, location arbitrage. You're coming from one place, you're selling a house at $1 million, you're trading lifestyle with something you had similar at half the price. If your marketplace is experiencing something similar, then you are likely on a longer trend where your marketplace is not going to settle for quite a long time. You likely have a hot market now, and it likely isn't changing anytime soon. But places like Boise are experiencing over 30% increase in inventory over last year. There's for sure signs that that market is cooling now, but that is not a national headline, and each marketplace is affected very, very differently. Now, the last component I want to talk about that is crucial and will affect even the hottest market in 2022 that you need to know about, and that's interest rates. You see, this year, interest rates are at record lows. The reason why they're at record lows is back when COVID hit, one of the Fed's plans was to continue to buy what's called mortgage-backed securities. Now, the Fed has been buying mortgage-backed securities at $40 billion per month. Now, mortgage-backed securities are basically mortgages. They're mortgage paper investments. When they're buying mortgage-backed securities, they're creating massive demand, which brings the interest rates and keeps them low. One of Jerome Powell's most recent interviews, he said he has no plans as of yet to taper off mortgages. As he was being asked, look, inflation's rampant, the housing market is running out of control. Is there any interest in stopping the buying of mortgage-backed securities? He said, no way, Jose, we're gonna keep the pressure on. Now, a lot of financial experts that are in that world are now unanimously saying they see a tapering in 2022. If the tapering does take place, less mortgage-backed securities will be bought, the interest rates will rise. And as you know, 60-70% of all home buyers are using mortgages to buy homes. The reality is that their buying power will shrink overnight with the interest rate. It is a fact, if interest rates rise, it will have a direct impact on the buying power of the buyer. It can have an impact on prices in as little as 1 to 2 months from that action taking place alone. As interest rates increase in the next year, those opportunities for great buys are going to explode exponentially, literally almost overnight. Now, the hotter markets will be hot. I have a feeling that Florida probably at least has another 18 months, maybe 2 years of strength where it's going to feel contentious, sellers still reign supreme, and buyers are still pushing to get in the door. But what do you do in a marketplace that is red hot or one that you fear is going to crash? If the market crashes around you, what should you be focusing on and what should you do right now? The first thing that I would tell home buyers is if you can buy, buy. There's no doubt that rents are going to go out of control. We're experiencing inflation. One thing is a fact is that when you have a rents will a lot of times rise with inflation and mortgages will stay locked in. If you get a 30-year fixed, which is another thing that you should do as a buyer, you will have a fixed low-cost mortgage against facing a higher money supply, inflation making it easier to pay down your mortgage with future dollars. It's a win-win. Whereas I see renters in the future having a very hard time making it, having less and less house, much higher payment, and your payment just not going as far. You're gonna look one day at your $2,500 or $3,000 mortgage payment going, how in the world am I living in this? I remember I could have had a mortgage on that for this. And I realized that a lot of buyers have stopped out of the market and their whole decision-making model is, I'm going to buy when the prices come down. But what you're not factoring in is that prices will come down when interest rates go up, as I just explained, which is going to only exacerbate the problem. We all know the cost of a house is your monthly payment. So it's only going to exacerbate a different problem over a 30-year time span. But as I said before, you should make sure that you are planning to be in that home for 6 to 10 years. If not in the home, plan to own the home. If you like the house, it's one that you would rent out if you needed to move out of it and you like the numbers, make sure that you would either live in it or own it for 6 to 10 years. The reason that is if the market does crash, the only real danger to you as a homeowner is if you decide to sell and you couldn't get out of the property with enough money and equity to pay the closing costs to get out of the house. And that ranges from 6 to 8%. The reality is if you're staying in for the long haul, you can look at the market, even when it cycles down, it cycles back up. The last thing that I would advise you to do is if you have not refinanced and you can refinance, do it. You're gonna save money. Keep an eye on the interest rates and get that refinance taking place before the end of the year, if at all possible, where you can actually lower your rate, you can actually get a lower payment and save yourself money and invest the difference. One of the smartest things you can do with an investment like a house. Hey, you like the updates? Smash that subscribe button for me. Hit the thumbs up. YouTube loves it when you do that. I love it when you do that. Please, right now, hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe. Thank you so much.